With me today is Joe Jaworski, running for Texas Attorney General. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Amy. How are you? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Well, today we are going to talk about corruption in the Attorney General's office. And woo, that's a big topic.
Yeah, you actually don't even have to say them both. All you need to say is Texas Attorney General Office, and everyone knows that means corruption.
Right.
You can just save your breath. Ken Paxton, uh, for the last 12 years has, issued a masterpiece thesis on how to be a corrupt politician. He's not even that good a lawyer. So the Attorney General's office, once the greatest law firm in Texas, is now just a political, think tank and a hit squad headquarters. And what people know is corruption's ugly, and it makes them feel like they don't count, and they turn away. That's why people don't vote in the numbers that we should as a healthy democracy, because it's depressing. And frankly, America still is more free than most places. I mean, the water's going down the drain pretty quickly, so people need to be a little alarmed about that. The water of freedom is going down the drain, but still, we have the freedom to turn away from our elections and turn off, our civic engagement because it's so ugly. I think we need to reverse that. And so this next election in 26 is a chance for Texas voters to reject corruption, which is synonymous with our government. Specifically, what I'm talking about, Amy, is the pay to play culture that allows, I think less than 24 millionaire billionaires who have treated Texas government like something to purchase at a Costco, and they have budgets from their enormous wealth that most of us would consider lotto size awards, but to them is just a rounding error on their interest that they make from their portfolio every year. And so they dedicate this, $10 million budget or so to purchasing influence. And that's a nice way of putting it. It is legal bribery. And remember, there's only 150 House representatives. There's 31 senators. There's like eight executives, constitutional executives, and you can go so far as the Supreme Court. Well, at least we know to limit contributions to the judiciary. Did you know that? Like in Texas, you can't really give a whole lot of money to a judge. Well, what's the thinking behind that? That sounds pretty smart. Why don't we do the same thing with the legislature? And Greg Abbott, who famously just received $10 million from one man, Jeff Yass, so that Greg Abbott could use it to send defamatory mail in about 20 House districts. These are all Republicans who were very loyal to him on literally everything except vouchers, because they are rural legislators who understand that the high school and the school district is a great employer in their district, and that Friday Night Lights is where people come together as a culture. So why would you defund that? I mean, just plug in every shameful critique the Republicans gave the Democrats about defunding the police. Well, why would you defund public education? But there you have it. So he used this money to defame 20 or so Republican legislatures on the question of immigration, all false, and he beat them all and put in stooge puppets who then become very suck up to Abbott on the question of vouchers, and he gets his voucher plan passed. Now, come to find out, the no bid contract to the company to run the voucher creepy program, it's called Odyssey, and Odyssey has ties to Jeff Yass. So he got his money's worth, I'll tell you that, because we're putting $1 billion to defund public education. $1 billion of your tax dollars going to various Texans who qualify on a lottery basis to use in private schools. And Odyssey gets 5% of that, or $50 million to run the program. That's corruption. And so let me also give you another example. Dan Patrick, our lieutenant governor,
Hmm.
who was the presiding judge of, the grand wizard of corruption, the guru of corruption, Ken Paxton, in his 2023 impeachment trial in the Texas Senate. The presiding judge got a $3 million contribution in the form of a $1 million check and a $2 million forgivable loan. We never knew the terms of the forgiveness from um, Tim Dunn, Ken Paxton's number one donor. I mean, this money came directly from his PAC. And it went to the presiding judge 6 weeks before calling the first witness at the impeachment trial. Among other things, Ken Paxton was not required to testify. That's one thing the money bought. Ken Paxton's wife was allowed to sit on the jury while muzzled. It doesn't matter. Her purpose was to be one of 31, requiring a two-thirds threshold to mean 21 votes. Had she been removed like the laws of conflict would require any reasonable person to assume, two-thirds of 30 would be a conviction vote of 20 senators. But because she was able to sit there, even though muzzled, there had to be 21. Amy, if you talk to any Democratic senator who's gone on the record, and there were numerous articles back in September 2023 detailing this, there were 20 votes to convict on a number. But because they couldn't get that 21st vote, thanks to Angela Paxton, the defendant's wife, sitting in the well of the Senate, like 8 senators, all Republican, backed off and said, hey, I wasn't going to convict. So there were 2 Republican senators who convicted on 2 charges. You got to give them the Courage Award. But that's corruption for you. And so what I would say is a Democrat in the Attorney General's office ought to be clear-eyed about the level of corruption, advocate for campaign finance limits, advocate for a commission, an independent commission to redistrict every 10 years. Otherwise, it's going to be partisan gerrymandering. There ought to be term limits in Texas government. It's not in the Texas Constitution, and it needs to be. They keep putting all this crazy stuff in the Constitution every year or two, like one of the most recent ones that, by the way, my primary opponent voted for, which was Proposition 16, clarifying that you have to be a United States citizen. Well, I
Like,
knew that all to vote in Texas. Well, we knew that already, Amy.
I mean,
Um,
it's not like it's in the United States Constitution, and it's not already the law
it
all
is.
over the country.
It's actually already like the word United States citizen in the voting section of the Texas Constitution. It already exists, so totally redundant. But people like my primary opponent, Nathan Johnson, who are sort of, fair weather Democrats, they vote for these things because they're trying to get along to go along. And all I'm saying is that is a low level of corruption, but the actual corruption is rampant, and it has a lot to do with the lobby writing checks. I wrote a very, I thought, spot on op-ed in the Dallas Morning News in 2024. It's on my website. And it basically called for campaign finance limits, term limits, independent commission on gerrymandering, and a constitutional amendment to allow Texas voters to petition their government and put matters to a constitutional vote with a sufficient number of signatures, just like so many other states have. And this would be the antidote to the corruption that robs Texas of effective government. And I think the greatest sin is this corruption causes people to turn away from voting because they think, you know, nothing matters and what if it did? It's just so ugly. I don't want to have anything to do with it. We've got to reverse that, Amy.
Since we're talking about corruption, and the current Attorney General is the most corrupt in my lifetime, and I'm
He- You're,
61 years old.
you're saying he's the corruptest.
Yeah, it's wow. Can you talk a little bit about what he has done that is corrupt?
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, first off, he it is well known that the morale at the Office of Attorney General is at an all-time low. He has politicized the office for partisan gain. The rule of law uh, is the iconic image of it is, justice blindfolded. And he has taken the blindfold off and put a gun to the head of justice saying, you're going to vote Republican or else. And so, by doing this, for example, his corruption includes threatening leaders within his office. Did you know, and this has been widely reported, so I'm not saying anything that's off the record, that the head of the Medicaid fraud division, a fabulous attorney who, for, I mean, close to 2 decades, brought in over $1 billion cash into Texas government by way of the Office of Attorney General, recovering sums fraudulently paid to dentists and doctors by the Medicaid system. Um, he was confronted by Ken Paxton and said, "All right, I want you to turn your investigative lens now on Planned Parenthood." And, he said, okay, and investigated it and came back and said, I don't see that they're committing Medicaid fraud. And he goes, try again. And he did a investigation and same answer. And he said, okay, time for you to find another job. That's corruption. Okay. And fortunately, that attorney is well purposed within Texas government elsewhere, but he's not at the Office of Attorney General. It was also reported that several people left when this good man was disposed of by a corrupt partisan attorney general. More to the point, Ken Paxton had a number of corruption details proven in his impeachment trial. And don't worry that he was acquitted, quote unquote. That was purely a political trial with a political outcome. The evidence proved that he was enabling Nate Paul in any number of ways. And I don't know that we ever really got to the bottom of his obsession with Nate Paul. We know that Nate Paul employed his mistress, that he was hiding from his wife. And in exchange, Nate Paul, who was very corrupt and getting involved in a lot of nefarious business deals involving real estate in Austin, that wound up with him being convicted and serving prison time, was asking the attorney general to do things like go to the FBI and get his file. He was asking the attorney general for midnight legal opinions that his foreclosure sale on a high rise in Austin couldn't go forward due to COVID. Um, uh, Ken Paxton was having repairs done to his home from unspecified sources of income. It goes on and on. Also, you'll recall that whether it's corruption or just plain partisan politics, I think that you don't have to say there's a thin line. It doesn't necessarily have to put money in his pocket. You could argue that longevity in office or the aggregation of power is money in his pocket. So doing things that are plainly partisan, I mean, I think that's corrupt. So filing suit, frivolous suit over the 2020 election, suing the state of Georgia and Pennsylvania and two others in the United States Supreme Court, which was all but laughed out of court within less than 10 days by the justices themselves. I mean, the extremely partisan conservative justices themselves threw his case out summarily. I mean, what was that? He was doing that to promote himself to Trump. And he's doing it again, running for the United States Senate and using the Office of Attorney General as a springboard for his conservative bona fides, suing my wife's and my hometown school district, Galveston Independent School District, because they wanted to pause, not decline, but pause hanging the Ten Commandments, given the fact that two federal courts in Texas have found the Ten Commandments law, written by MAGA Mays Middleton, to be unconstitutional. I mean, one trustee very eloquently pointed out, look, I took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the United States Constitution. Two federal judges in Texas have found this law unconstitutional. Let me get through that first before we get into suing us to hang, framed, documents from, the King James Bible that you got from Hobby Lobby. I mean, you
And
know,
hilariously
yeah,
enough,
yeah.
I'm sorry, if you're going to put the Ten Commandments, it ought to be in the original Hebrew. But
Hey, agreed. I mean, let's get real.
but also that these people, how many of those commandments has this man broken?
Yeah, he's definitely committed adultery multiple times, as we now know from his wife's divorce petition, which was unsealed. But I mean, look, the guy was not a very good lawyer when he was in private practice, and there are many such stories that involve people running for office because they just couldn't make it in private practice. And in a way, term limits would have weeded him out long ago, but sorry to say, we don't have that. So corruption is rampant. Ken Paxton is the guru of Texas corruption. We tried to get him, Amy, we, the good people of Texas, through whistleblowing, indictments, investigations, and the like. But the only thing that exited him from office was his own ambition. And so I hope that as he ascends toward the sun, his wings melt.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, and let everybody know where can they find more about you.
Well, thank you, Amy. Our website has it all, and it's www.jaworski4texas.com, and that's spelled out JAWORSKIFORTEXAS.com.
And there you can find links to all the social media. All right, thank you again, Joe.